It just started.
Oh yeah, no worries. Just can you pull up my Twitter real quick? Like not immediately, just have it kind of ready in the wings. Just like my Twitter real quick. What's
Yeah.
up everybody? What's up everybody? Welcome to Status Coup. It is Wednesday, February 28th. I am your host, Ron Placone. And before we kick into the news today, I want to make a quick announcement, which is why I was talking to Colin there once we hit the go button. A little bit of sad breaking news here. Comedy legend Richard Lewis passed away. He had been battling a lot of health issues. He had retired from stand up due to, I believe it was Parkinson's. And yeah, that's me. I did not do a great job with that selfie, admittedly. But I didn't know Richard terribly well, but I did open for him one weekend in Nashville, Tennessee, many years ago. And opening for him was just a crash course in comedy. I mean, he was a master at the game. He was a brilliant comedian, brilliant actor, brilliant performer, and he was a really cool guy too. I really liked getting to talk to him and getting to spend some time with him as a young comic. It was very, very cool and a very amazing experience. And rest in peace, Richard Lewis. Yeah, so that's a little bit of sad breaking news. Not a fun way to open the show, but yeah, we lost a comedy legend today, and he had been battling some health issues. Rest in peace, Richard Lewis. All right, we have a very, very full show for you today. Very, very full. I mean, first of all, we're going to be unpacking the uncommitted vote that happened in Michigan. What does that mean exactly? We're going to be going through it. That's our first story of today, and it is today's poll, which do you think the DNC will listen to Michigan? You can go ahead and vote yes or no, but we're going to be going through it all. Also, we're going to be talking later in the hour about Wendy's. The fast food chain Wendy's tried to pull a quick one. Then I think they got caught with it. And they got so much flack, they had to backpedal a little bit. We're going to be going through it. A story concerning RFK. Mitch McConnell is Mitch McGonnell. Sorry, I had to. It was right there. A little bit of good news. Well, the Mitch McConnell thing was definitely some good news. We have more good news. Gigi Sohn, who was the FCC nominee via Joe Biden, who got screwed over by a huge right-wing smear campaign, but she has a new project now, and I'm a little excited about it. We're going to be talking about it a little bit, and some good news in regards to the Kroger-Albertsons merger. So we actually have three pieces of good news today that is genuinely good news. And guys, good news is few and far between, so we got to hold on to it and cherish it when it does happen. And I feel like three stories is a little higher than usual. Smash the like button. But we're not going to start with the good news, folks. We're going to start with the more difficult news, and we're going to be going through the uncommitted vote in Michigan and what that means in the bigger scheme of things, and what it means in regards to the ongoing struggle in Gaza. So to help me through this, we had to pre-record an interview because she wasn't able to attend live, but we pre-recorded this interview a little over an hour ago. This is a scholar, historian, and author of the Middle East named Assal Rad. You can follow her on Twitter. And here's the interview we had. This kind of unpacks the uncommitted vote and what it means in the bigger scheme of things. We're going to go ahead and play that interview and then take it from there. Up everybody. So we have a special guest to kind of weigh in, not just on the uncommitted vote itself, but also what it means in the bigger scheme of things. So here to unpack some of this with me, she is a scholar and author of the Middle East. Please welcome to the show, Assal Rad. Assal, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So let's just get your take on what happened in Michigan. There was a very significant number of uncommitted votes. So what do you think the kind of overall goal is there? And then furthermore, how does that pertain to the bigger scheme of things as far as what's going on in Gaza?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's a sort of attempt to downplay the significance of the vote. One thing to keep in mind is Michigan is a swing state for a reason. It's a significant swing state. It wouldn't be called a swing state if it couldn't go both ways, right? So that's sort of the big thing to start with, because I think it's odd when this vote is downplayed, it makes it seem like Biden's just going to win the state no matter what.
Right.
And that obviously doesn't make sense, because that's why we're talking about Michigan. We don't talk about California the same way, because it's not a major swing state. So
yeah,
Michigan,
it is kind of funny that we have to point that out, but we totally do, because of the way people are downplaying it. It's like, that's why it's called swing. That is what's meant by the swing part. But
right. And if you look at the numbers, Biden won the state by around 150,000 votes in 2020, when we saw the record voter turnout. Hillary Clinton lost the state in 2016. I think the margin was something like 10, 11,000 votes. So you see how important these margins are, right? And when you look at 100,000, more than 100,000 uncommitted voters, that is a significant number. And this is where that word significant is coming from. That is a significant number for a swing state that has these close margins that we have seen in the last 2 elections. Now, the over 100,000 uncommitted doesn't include the votes that went to other Democratic candidates that were on the list as well. So when you combine those votes that are theoretically against Joe Biden, the incumbent, that is very close to the margin that we looked at in 2020. So this is significant for that reason. This state can, even without this clear campaign of people who originally supported Biden in 2020, who are now voting against him in 2024, it's always up for grabs. But the significance of the uncommitted campaign is these are voters in Michigan that were Biden supporters, many of them. We can't speak for all of them, but obviously there is a campaign that is saying that they want the president to be held accountable to his constituents. That's sort of the basic foundation and premise of a democracy. So the idea that this is also the narrative around this campaign, the negative, at least, narrative around this campaign from proponents of President Biden is sort of odd, because this is exactly what voters are supposed to do if they want the policy positions that they want the administration to take to be taken seriously, right? This isn't, this is how electoral politics work, or else how else do you keep these elected officials accountable to what their constituents want? The other aspect of the uncommitted vote to keep in mind is this is one state that has a significant Arab and Muslim population. And so there's another way of sort of talking about it, like, well, they're on the national scale, that group is insignificant. But the polling on specifically the issue of Gaza, which is why this campaign exists, the issue of Gaza and the way that the Biden administration is handling it, there is bipartisan support for a ceasefire. So this isn't just an Arab and Muslim issue either. So all of those ways of sort of downplaying and undermining the significance of this uncommitted vote, I think should be talked about, because, you know, the idea is not to say, well, there you go, Biden's 100% going to lose Michigan and therefore he's going to lose the election. No one is making that argument, because that argument would also be false. The argument that's being put forth is that this is significant for a swing state, that it is in and of itself significant in order for the reelection of Joe Biden. Will this cause him, knowing that the risk to his reelection exists, will this cause him to actually reflect on what these constituents are calling for in his policy in Gaza? Which, by the way, would just be the policy that the entire international community supports.
is that the main goal of the campaign then? They want him to give these concessions?
I think there's, you know, people who are participating in it have, just like anything else, they're not a monolith. Everybody doesn't have the same position. There's certainly people who I think will not go back on what this administration has done. So there's some who want a different Democratic candidate, right? It's not the other part of this sort of debate is a campaign against Joe Biden, therefore a campaign for the Republican candidate who currently looks to be Donald Trump, the former President Donald Trump. That's also misleading, right? That's not what a lot of people are saying. These are themselves Democrats, people who support the Democratic Party, people who supported and voted for Joe Biden, who are simply asking that the administration actually listen to its own voters. In the polls for support for ceasefire, while it's bipartisan, overwhelmingly Democrats support a ceasefire. So why the president is not responding to or imposing policies that actually reflect the will of not only the people, but his own party, that is what should be questioned, not why people are questioning those policies. And so I think the problem is the discussion is happening in reverse very often. Then there are those who I think just want this administration to change policy. It's not even necessarily that they're asking for a new candidate. They're saying, if this policy continues, if what we are calling for is not heeded, then we'll have no choice but to not vote or not participate. So there's different aims and ambitions within this kind of campaign. And I think, again, the major takeaway from it is that just like there is always a risk for any candidate to lose Michigan, there is absolutely a risk for Joe Biden, who carried Michigan in 2020. And there is clearly a greater risk now because of a campaign like this that is based on his policy in Gaza.
So getting more big picture now, what does this kind of mean in the big scheme of things as far as what is going on in Gaza? If the president were to finally call for a ceasefire, as so many around the world are desperate for him to do, what could that mean?
I think for the people of Gaza, for Palestinians, it will mean a lot, because every day that this war continues is more civilians killed. Every day is people being displaced from their homes. It's people who are starving because they're not getting the proper aid that they need. The more we can mitigate the loss to human life and the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza, the sooner that can happen, the better. That should be said outright. So that's why this is so important to push. But something to keep in mind is, for some voters, it's too late. This is a foregone conclusion in terms of the Biden administration. But remember, we're talking about two different issues. We're talking about the election, the domestic US election, and a policy that is affecting millions of people across the world. And so while they're interrelated, whatever happens in the US election, the fact that you have the state of Israel currently on trial for genocide, that the highest world court has found that it is plausible that Israel's actions are genocidal, that in and of itself is an issue. That's not always something that we're going to tie to a US election. So we should be taking action on that front, if for no other reason, just because of the humanitarian reason, just because of what's happening to Palestinians in Gaza. In addition to that, there is the domestic picture for Americans, right? If Joe Biden is not the strongest candidate, and there's a fear among many in the American populace about a re-election of Donald Trump, then that's something that has to be seriously considered on the domestic front, because obviously then there will be consequences for Americans versus what we're seeing, which is consequences for people, Palestinians in Gaza. But I do think that the push to get this administration to act as soon as possible is necessary, quite literally, for saving lives.
Do you think they're going to listen?
I wish I was more optimistic. I would want to say that I have, I mean, if we're being honest, this administration, first of all, this administration shouldn't have needed pressure from Americans, right? If it was acting according to its own word, let's start there. If this administration was acting according to its own rhetoric, then we shouldn't be here right now. When Joe Biden was elected in 2020, his first comment to the international community was, "America is back," right? That was his coined phrase. Meaning what? He argued that his predecessor had sort of gutted these international institutions, had tarnished the reputation of the United States on the international stage, and had undermined the international rules-based order based on international institutions and law that the repeated US administrations had championed for so long. This was the argument of Joe Biden. And yet here we are in a situation where arguably he's done more to tarnish all of those things, with such an egregious double standard in the way that this admin has treated Russia and the war in Ukraine versus Israel and its war on Gaza. When you juxtapose the difference in response, that Russia became the most sanctioned country in the world almost overnight, whereas this admin has bypassed Congress twice to send weapons to Israel as it is committing war crimes. when you look at that difference, then what you sort of can't deny is that this admin is not following its own word. So that's the first thing. That's just the first thing. The second lever of pressure should have been the international community. It should have been the UN General Assembly overwhelmingly voting for a ceasefire. It should have been the UN Security Council now 3 times calling for a ceasefire resolution, all to be vetoed by the United States. It should have been the fact that the International Court of Justice found against Israel and in favor of South Africa's case, right? All of these pressures from the international community, as well as from our own allies in the region, right? You have, for instance, very early in this conflict in October, the foreign minister of Jordan, who's talking about how basically no one in the region trusts what Israel is saying, or by extension, what the US is saying. This is a US ally in the region. So all of that should have also been enough. And yet we still didn't see it. So now, do I believe that domestic pressure will somehow change it? I'm not terribly optimistic, because if it was going to happen, it should have happened by now, right? We shouldn't have 30,000 people killed, 14,000 children killed before this administration takes action.
Yeah, sadly, I share your lack of optimism as well. So let's go bigger picture as we wrap up here, and kind of focus more on your work. When you talk about the issues of Gaza, and especially what's going on right now, what is the most significant piece of disinformation that you find yourself having to push back against the most?
I would say the significant. So we obviously with social media, there's the fear of misinformation and disinformation, which happens not just in this conflict or on foreign policy issues, but unfortunately in every issue. But what I would actually say is the mainstream narrative, not even disinformation, but the mainstream narrative is the biggest problem, because you have people who are working on debunking things that are disinformation, saying this is false, fact checking. But it's the institutions that are credible, that are supposed to be credible sources. It's not that they're not giving you information, it's that they're giving you information framed in a way that's making people think a particular way about this conflict. Starting with the fact that the way the entire sort of history of the Palestinian issue is framed within mainstream Western media is as if especially if you start with what happened on October 7th, right? Obviously, what happened on October 7th, the attacks on Israeli civilians, are horrible. But the idea that this conflict sort of arose on October 7th is completely ahistorical. There's a whole history of, just decades of occupation, decades of ongoing military occupation that has been well documented, not only in terms of scholarship and history, but by those very international bodies that I was talking about earlier, right? The UN has countless resolutions that refer to a history of occupation by Israel against Palestinians. You have the world's most recognized human rights organizations, including Israeli human rights organizations, pointing to Israel's action constituting apartheid against Palestinians. For all of that to be ignored is highly problematic in how people understand how they shape their understanding of what is happening now, but also how this particular war on Gaza has been depicted is in many ways egregious. Just the fact that, the language that's used, that when you look at a headline, Palestinians die, Israelis are killed. When you look at a headline and it just says, the word Palestinian is rarely used because there's the erasure of the Palestinian identity. Israel is rarely used when referring to Israeli strikes on Gaza. All of these misframings shape the narrative in a way that lacks real understanding and dehumanizes Palestinians in the process. And I think that's why we get to a place where you have mass slaughter taking place despite having an international outcry, without it having enough of an impact on the levers of power that exist in the United States, and that lies with the Biden administration.
So in closing, where can people go to learn more about you and your work and follow you?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at ASSALRAD. Just my name is my handle on Twitter. And there's plenty of resources, plenty of other great people to follow. I would suggest following Palestinians, especially the very few remaining journalists in Gaza, to get as much information as they can.
Who are some of the journalists in Gaza that you recommend?
We have Basan, who's still in Gaza, Hind, who's still in Gaza. You have a lot of, unfortunately, journalists that were that have left. Motaz is obviously someone who has a very strong following, and while he is no longer in Gaza, he still posts and receives information and shares a lot, and he has a significant platform to get voices from Gaza out. So those are all excellent sources to follow.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for taking some time to talk to us today, and best wishes to you and everything. And keep doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sorry, folks. Yeah, for that brief moment there, that was way too many Ron faces on one screen. That was the Ron face of the past, Ron face of the present. So yeah, that was Assal Rad, who we got to talk to about an hour ago. She could not catch the live stream, but we were able to talk to her about that. And I really loved her answer to my last question, and I hope you all did as well. But the last question, where I said, as a historian and scholar in this space, what is the most prominent disinformation you really got to push back against? I really loved her answer. I thought she just put it so eloquently, and I really appreciated it. I hope you did as well. Before we move into the Nina Turner Anderson Cooper spat, we got a little bit of some on the ground coverage. That's something that's near and dear to our hearts here at Status Coup. Johnny F was on the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and he has some footage talking about the uncommitted vote at some of the protests that he has been covering. So let's go to that clip now, Colin.
He absolutely should take this message seriously. Those votes count. Those are his constituents. And Michigan is a very important state for the Biden administration. And so what happened last night is a message not simply from Palestinian voters, Muslim and Arab voters, South Asian voters, but also Democrats. These are voters across the Democratic Party who are sending a message that our tax dollars should not be funding military aid in Israel. We reject that. And so I'm proud of what happened last night. And I think what we're going to witness in the coming days and weeks with primaries across other states where this option is possible will be repeated.
I would say yes. I think that's the best pressure we can put on Biden right now, is to threaten not to vote for him. I mean, I wish it was opening his heart to all of the horrors that have been committed to the children and to the doctors and to the healthcare and the hospitals and the starving. But what seems to really move him is if he thinks he might not get elected. So yes, absolutely. Yay, Michigan.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Well, it'd be nice if he just had compassion for all the innocent people who have died. But since that's not the option, maybe losing his job will sway him a little bit. Maybe, just maybe. Man, I think that woman put it very well. They both did. And folks, friendly reminder, Status Coup has covered over 30 ceasefire now protests in New York City and DC. Please support our on-the-ground reporting. $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join. You get all kinds of cool stuff with your membership too. There's membership calls. There's special events. We might be, I'm going to talk to Jordan. Maybe we're going to be doing a special screening of my movie just for Status Coup members. We'll do a members only event screening of my movie. So you definitely get some cool stuff with it. So please, statuscoup.com/join. And also in the short term, please do leave a super chat. I will get to all your super chats at the end of the show today. So Nina Turner.
Oh, real quick, before we go to that one, I had some breaking news from Jordan. That right here, the SCOTUS is going to hear Trump's presidential immunity appeal, which
Okay.
also Jordan was saying would delay his January 6th trial.
Okay. So you're gonna need to make this a little bit bigger if you want me to read any of it. Like, can you make it bigger?
Possibly. I think the main thing is just the tweets here.
Just the tweet. Okay.
Right
So
here.
okay. Per order from the court. Oh, there it goes again.
I don't know what Twitter's doing.
Twitter, I mean, Elon just doesn't want us to have a show, man. That's what it is. Elon's just per order of the court. The issuance of the mandate is stayed until SCOTUS rules on Trump's appeal. In other words, Trump's DC case is on pause until SCOTUS has its say. So I guess we'll know more, and I believe April was the date that they released. So things are kind of going to be on pause until April with Donald Trump. I have a feeling Donald Trump is going to coast to the nomination. That's what I think is going to happen. Same thing we've been saying for years now. Donald Trump's probably going to coast to the nomination. But we'll see what happens. I guess we'll know more in April. So Nina Turner and Anderson Cooper. Shall we go there next, Colin? Is it time for the debacle between Anderson Cooper and Nina Turner? That was quite interesting.
What these voters are doing is raising their voices and saying this is an issue that matters to us tonight. This is an issue that matters to us tomorrow, and the White House needs to listen. And I think the White House is listening to that message. But, you know, this is, if he's able to reel off these successes, then tonight actually will be a success for all, and you'll have a different outcome come November, because I'll pass it to Nina or whomever can help me understand this. But I don't think for many voters who are voting uncommitted that they're going to vote uncommitted and then say Donald Trump is my choice. I think this is more complicated than that.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Bakari. I mean, no one that I interface with said that they wanted to vote for Donald J. Trump. There is a however here. And I think sometimes as we talk about this issue, we're centering President Biden. We are centering former President Donald J. Trump, when the uncommitted effort is to center the people closest to the pain. And that is the Arab American community. That is the Palestinian community. That is communities that care about peace. And so while this president was in the ice cream shop saying, I think there's going to be a ceasefire, 30,000 people have been slaughtered. People are living in famine. They can't get medical care. So it can't come soon enough for them. And that was really the weight that I picked up on when I was in Dearborn. So we get to be comfortable and talk about this like these people are widgets when they are in fact suffering. And I am young enough to remember, colleagues, when Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and also Congresswoman Cori Bush called for a ceasefire very early on. They were called abhorrent. Now, fast forward to all of these bodies laying in the wake and people who are living through this every single day.
So by the way, there's also been slaughter in Israel.
I was going to say.
So there's a lot of pain on both sides.
No,
so
I'm not.
I'm not lecture on the problem, but I'm talking about the politics of this tonight. What to you would be a victory, as somebody was calling for this uncommitted vote? What to you would be a victory tonight to get that message across?
I'm not denying that pain. All I'm saying that at a certain point after October the 7th, it becomes clear. I mean, you have a right-wing prime minister.
Right. We don't need to debate the issue.
But you understand what I'm saying? I'm not denying anybody's pain. What I am saying is that this president and our country has the power to say to Netanyahu, we need a permanent ceasefire. The only time hostages...
reason, though, if I can push back here...
Wait, one more point. The only time hostages were released is when we had that brief ceasefire. That is another reason why we need a permanent ceasefire.
I also have to remind people we had a ceasefire prior to October 7th, right? I mean, that's a point. And I get centering people, and I completely understand that. But I think, Anderson, your point is valid as well, that there is a lot of pain to go around, and we cannot forget that. But I'm talking about tangible solutions.
Please, Nina Turner, just tell us they'll still vote for Biden. That's what Anderson Cooper wanted, if you couldn't see through that. And you know what? Credit to Nina Turner. She just took on 6 other panelists. That panel was 6-on-1, and dare I say, Nina Turner held her own. They didn't want her to talk about that. That's why everyone there was getting uncomfortable. But Anderson Cooper, he needed to take the reins and just say, no, stop talking about the problem. Let me do some really lazy whataboutism and then try to get you away from that problem. And I'll lecture you if you try to respond to it. We don't need to hear about the problem. Actually, you do, Anderson, because your network doesn't really talk about the problem. Your network and the other corporate networks don't really talk about what's really going on. And even despite that abysmal failure from the corporate media, tons of Americans favor a ceasefire anyway. Tons of Americans are seeing through the nonsense and they favor a ceasefire So Nina Turner just went on there and said something they didn't want her to say. She brought up something they didn't want her to bring up. And so they wanted to stop it as quickly as they could. That's what was really going on there. And I think what they really wanted her to say was, oh, they'll still vote for Biden, right? This is just symbolic. At the end of the day, they're not going to vote Trump, right? Because they're trying to downplay this whole thing. Like we talked about in the interview earlier, they're trying to downplay the amount of uncommitted votes that Biden got. And guess what? They shouldn't be downplaying it. Colin, can we show that tweet from Nina? It was actually Nina Turner's tweet that shows the difference in all the numbers. Because there's a little bit of history here when you compare it to other elections. So in 2012, there were 20,000 uncommitted votes. Twitter is just going haywire again. Elon Musk does not like this show. 2016, 21,000. 2020, 19,000. 2024, over 100,000. Over 100,000 uncommitted votes. So that's something that should give Joe Biden pause. That's something that should give the DNC pause. Now, again, the poll today, will they listen to the DNC? Yes or no? Will there be policy concessions or maybe even a different candidate? Will they listen in any way whatsoever? Yes or no? But they really should. And I'll say this. I think that if Joe Biden were to lose Michigan, I think if he loses Michigan, he will definitely lose another swing state of similar caliber to Michigan. And if he does that, I think it could definitely harm his chances significantly of re-election. So this should be taken very, very seriously. I'd be willing to wager if Joe Biden were to lose Michigan, out of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, I bet he loses at least one more of those. I bet he loses either Pennsylvania or Wisconsin if he loses Michigan. Maybe all three. But I would say if he loses one, he's not going to lose just one. That's again, that's a guess. That's a prediction. There's still a lot that can happen between now and November, so things could totally change. But I would say they should be taking something like this seriously. Are they going to? I have my doubts. I don't think so. But they really, really should be. So let's go to Marianne Williamson has decided to unsuspend her campaign. That's another update in all this. After she finished, I think she was right behind the uncommitted vote. She decided to unsuspend her campaign. Colin, let's go to that video.
Hey, I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. I had suspended it because I was losing the horse race. But something so much more important than the horse race is at stake here, and we must respond. Right now, we have a fascist standing at the door. Everybody's all upset about it. Well, we should be upset about it, but we're not going to defeat the fascist by what? What is President Biden offering? He says, let's finish the job. Well, I hope you realize we're talking about millions of voters for whom they can't even survive unless they work at 2 or 3 jobs. What is he saying beyond, the economy is really doing well? Are you kidding me? For whom? It's doing well for 20% of us, and that's to be celebrated. But that 20% is on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. 39% of the American people report that they are regularly skipping meals in order to pay their rent. Over half of bankruptcies come from medical debt, 1 in 4 Americans carry. We're now living at a time where economic anxiety is experienced by the majority of people living paycheck to paycheck, the minimum wage not having been raised, and increasing militarism. What's going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. We, the people, basically don't own this country right now. Abraham Lincoln said that people who died in the Civil War for the Union had died so that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people would not perish from the earth. It's perishing now and on our watch.
So Marianne Williamson back in the game. I do appreciate she's talking about the disparity there. Most candidates don't bring that up. They're trying to make it out like the economy's going great, which it isn't. It's actually going very, very poorly. And what they do is they kind of fudge the numbers so that it sounds good. They'll say, oh yeah, unemployment's down. Yeah, but the way you measure unemployment is kind of messed up because you don't measure underemployment, which is what most people are facing because they're having to work 2 and 3 jobs to survive. So Marianne Williamson back in the race. So Michigan, I think one would think Michigan would be a wake-up call to the DNC. I don't think it will be, but it should be. And also this is from Jordan. The Uncommitted campaign is also now quickly moving resources to Washington and Minnesota. Now, those are other primaries where Uncommitted is on the ballot line. So that's a little bit of shakeup. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see if there's also significant turnouts for that in Washington State and in Minnesota, which are, typically more, progressive states, Washington and Minnesota. I feel weird even saying that when it comes to anywhere in the United States, because in reality, there are no progressive states in the United States. It's not really a thing. There's just progressive, comparatively speaking, states. I used to live in Seattle. It's very neoliberal in its politics. Anyway. And so is here in LA. Like California is not some progressive utopia at all. But anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent on that. So that's what happened in Michigan. I think it's significant. Oh, and by the way, Nina Turner did not just face some flack from Anderson Cooper. Let's go to the anti-Semite tweet that was posted about her by Jared Moskowitz. This is what he had to say. Nina Turner is an open anti-Semite. She should be nowhere on TV spreading her hateful rhetoric. The hateful rhetoric was she's saying that innocent people shouldn't be dying. That's the hateful rhetoric. She's saying innocent people shouldn't die. So let's go down to her response. She had a response to this. And I thought her response was pretty good. Congressman, how dare you smear my character like this? You should be ashamed. Nothing I said was anti-Semitic. It's anti-Black for you to try to throw dirt on my name for simply standing up for humanity. It's ridiculous. So there you have it. So Anderson Cooper wasn't the only one to try to, who took offense to her bringing up the humanity element of the atrocious genocide that's happening right now. And what the Israeli government is doing with the support and blessing of the United States government. And Joe Biden still will not call for a ceasefire, despite the fact most of the country wants it, despite the fact most of the world is calling for it, despite the fact the UN is calling for it, despite the fact the countries all around the world are calling for it, despite the fact that even members of Congress and the Senate, even though they're nowhere close to mirroring public opinion, even some of them, at least, are calling for it. Even though the state of Michigan has said, your job's in jeopardy if you don't do this, pal, Joe Biden still, as of right now at least, won't call for a frickin' ceasefire. So let's go. We're gonna go a little more domestic now. And we're going to go, this is kind of a fun one a little bit. We're going to go to Wendy's, the fast food giant Wendy's, who really tried to pull a quick one on everyone. And it looks like Oh, they might have got caught. Let's start at the beginning. Colin, let's go to the Gizmodo story first. So Wendy wants to start Uber-like surge pricing in 2025. So this is from yesterday. Now, guys, I'm going to tell a really quick personal anecdote here. I don't really eat fast food, but once a year, like, you know how fast food restaurants, they unroll like different products and special limited time only things. So every now and again, I'll see one of those and I'll think that looks interesting. So my thing, because I don't really eat fast food, once a year, one time a year, I will basically pretend I'm an 8-year-old child again, and I will pick a fast food product and I'll just have a big old cheat day, and I'll just order whatever I want. I can get a dessert, I can do whatever, and that's my thing. 2 years ago in 2022, I got the pretzel pizza from Little Caesars. I like pretzels. So Little Caesars released a pretzel pizza. I got it. I got it hot and ready. I didn't eat all of it in one sitting, but I ate enough of it that it was embarrassing in one sitting. And then eventually I ate it. I think my wife got like one slice. But that's my thing. In 2023, I forgot to do it, so I didn't do anything in 2023. Which brings us to 2024. My big cheat for 2024, after careful consideration. Now, Grant, mind you, this is before this story. But my thing in 2024 was I wanted the pretzel baconator from Wendy's. The pretzel baconator, it appealed to me. So that was my big cheat for 2024. I was like, I'm going to get the pretzel baconator. It was disgusting. It was first of all, the pretzel bun, I'm pretty sure the pretzel bun was just a bun that they put brown food coloring on. It tasted like, it just tasted like a regular bun. It didn't taste like pretzel at all. I mean, the pretzel crust from Little Caesars, it tasted like freaking pretzel. This just tasted like nothing. And the burger, like there was way too much. There was ketchup on it, which why would you put ketchup on a burger like that? A pretzel bun with ketchup, that doesn't make sense. The burger itself was not great because I think Wendy's burgers are already not great. It was so disappointing. It was one of those things where like it hurt to eat. Like I didn't want to finish it, but I didn't want to waste food, and I couldn't give it to someone because I'd already like taken bites out of it. Like I almost thought, like, should I just cut this in half and give half of it to one of the homeless people in the neighborhood? I'm like, I've already like bitten out of this thing though, and I don't want to like, try to like salvage something away from my germs. So I just ate it, and oh God, was it gross. I wish I would have picked something else is my point. So I wanted to share that little anecdote because it's relevant to today's story. Wendy's was going to do Uber type pricing. So here's what they were trying to do. Wendy's wants to start Uber-like surge pricing in 2025. Wendy's will start experimenting with surge pricing, much like Uber and Lyft. Now, you guys have probably experienced that. At a certain time, if there's a big demand for rides, your ride with Uber and Lyft is going to cost a lot more. If you're trying to get somewhere during rush hour, it's going to be surge pricing, which means your ride's going to be about 2 or 3 times as much as it would be regularly, or it would be during a slow time. Under the test, burgers, Frosties, and other menu items will have dynamic prices, costing more during times of increased demand. Beginning as early as 2025, we will begin testing more enhanced features like dynamic pricing, said Wendy's CEO Kirk Tanner. We are planning to invest approximately $20 million to roll out digital menu boards to all U.S.-operated restaurants by the end of 2025. Part of the benefit of these digital menu boards is you can change prices as much as you'd like. Consumers are familiar with surge pricing through rideshare services like Uber and Lyft, where prices fluctuate significantly depending on demand. Dynamic pricing is a relatively new concept. So here, this paragraph's important. A Wendy's Baconator costs $12.24 in New York City. Not worth it. By the way, if you have not tried that sandwich and you're curious, skip it. You'll thank me. It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. It was my cheat for the year, and boy, do I regret it. I'll do something different in 2025, maybe, or maybe I'll just do away with the tradition altogether. But that was my one cheat, and wow, was it disgusting. But under dynamic pricing, that price could fluctuate throughout the day. The burger The burger could increase in price around lunchtime or go down during a slow afternoon. Wendy's did not provide details as to how severely prices could fluctuate. Interesting. So that yesterday was what Wendy's was trying to do. So now let's go to the tweet, Colin. I thought this was a very good point. Let's go to the tweet from Proud Communist. Proud Communist asked this question, and I think it's a very, very good one. Wendy's, are you going to pay surge wages too? So Wendy's got a lot of outrage for this. A lot of people took to social media and have been tweeting Wendy's, and Wendy's has been absolutely silent about it. So let's fast forward to what they said today. They had to respond to all this. Let's go to the PC Mag article, Colin. Due to all the flack they got yesterday, here's Wendy's response. Wendy's clarifies digital surge pricing strategy after blowback. Now, the fast food chain says its dynamic pricing strategy would only be used to offer discounts, not to hike up prices during peak hours. Wendy's is trying to clean up the messaging surrounding its controversial plan to implement AI-backed dynamic pricing, saying it'll only be used to offer discounts, not to hike up prices. Now, let's call that what it really is. Wendy's got so much blowback for what they were trying to do that they had to backpedal. And here is their attempt to clean up the PR nightmare. No. We just meant we would give you discounts. Because, whenever someone's on a call with shareholders, they're always listing ways to save the customer money. That's their goal when they're talking to shareholders. Nice try, Wendy's. And if you truly believe this, boy, I got some oceanfront property. I got some oceanfront property in Ohio to sell you if you buy this from Wendy's. They got caught. That's what happened. So shame on you, Wendy's. Glad you're having to backpedal. And Wendy, don't forget, wear a helmet when you're backpedaling. It's a little dangerous. You don't want to wreck your bicycle. All right. So guys, again, one sheet a year. Boy, did I make the wrong call for a number of reasons. I mean, one, they're doing this stuff, but also, so disappointing. It was really a bummer. Yeah. I took a Tums immediately after. All right. Anyway, and feel free to leave a super chat. I will get to all your super chats. Speaking of things that might give you indigestion, RFK. Oh, that guy. He's a doozy. RFK had some interesting stuff going on in his campaign. Let's go to the Mediaite article. Now, I think the summary of this story is, guys, sometimes there are only bad guys and there are not good guys. Now, I know that we live in an era where political fan fiction is the way of the land, where people think, well, if somebody is undesirable, then somebody else must be great. And what I mean by that is, well, the DNC is not great, so I guess RFK must be okay because he doesn't like the DNC and vice versa. Or, well, RFK is pretty terrible, so I guess maybe the DNC is not so bad in this scenario. Folks, life is not a comic book. Sometimes there are no good guys. And two things can be true at the same time, where RFK is not an outsider. He is not a leftist. He is totally an insider. He is a right winger. He opposes Medicare for all. He has ties to Wall Street. He gets Wall Street money. He has super PACs. He's an imperialist. You want someone who's terrible on Israel, Gaza? Hear RFK talk. He thinks the free market will solve climate change. And at the end of the day, folks, guess what? He's part of the Kennedy legacy. He wasn't just born on third base. He was born on third base, and they walked the batter. All he had to do was walk home, and he somehow managed to mess that up. He's not some outsider. Nowhere close. But the DNC also not great. So let's go to the article here. Exclusive, RFK Jr. campaign fired top staffer who raised concerns about finances. RFK Jr.'s 2024 campaign has fired its national finance director at his long shot bid for presidency. Multiple sources told Mediaite that Sheila Creel, a veteran Democratic bundler who worked on Joe Biden's 2020 bid. Wait a second. The outsider guy is working with people who had ties to Biden? He's working with Democratic insiders? Big corporate Democrat lobbyists? That's who he's working with? I thought he was the anecdote. I thought he was the outsider. I guess maybe these people, it's all just a money game to them. I don't know. So anyway, she was fired by the campaign after she scrutinized how the campaign was managing its finances. The sources said Creel raised questions about exorbitant spending and concerns about potential FEC issues. Puck's Teddy Schleifer reported on Tuesday that Creel had quietly left the campaign. Now, she didn't quit, a source familiar with the situation said. They abruptly let her go when she started looking into their finances and questioning their communication with American Values PAC, a political action committee backing the campaign. This is a political action committee backing the campaign that also has given a lot of money to Trump. The DNC filed a federal election complaint earlier this month accusing the Kennedy campaign and American Values of illegal coordination. Another source said Creel questioned the financials in a lot of different ways, including FEC issues. Creel and Kennedy did not immediately respond. Creel's departure adds to a growing list of problems facing the Kennedy campaign. Keep in mind this campaign replaced Dennis Kucinich, who inexplicably agreed to work for RFK. But they replaced Dennis Kucinich with a CIA person. Mediaite reported earlier this month that 14 staffers resigned at the start of the year. Those who spoke with Mediaite alleged disorganization, lavish spending, and a disconnect between the campaign and the candidates' values as reasons for their departure. A source close to the campaign who remains supportive of Kennedy lamented that the campaign has been so mismanaged. This quote is, wow. The people love Bobby because he is so aligned with his core purpose to operate in truth and in integrity. And his goal is to help people. I guess unless they're people in Gaza. And the departure of the people around him from his core purpose is the saddest thing. He would be devastated to learn what is going on with his name. Yes, it's everyone's fault but his. I don't know what is in the Kool-Aid that guy's drinking. It's everyone's fault but RFK's. Neat story. And by the way, here's the other side of all this. The DNC, also a very shady organization. And, you know, with what RFK has built, the guy should be on the ballot. I'm not a fan of the guy, but I think he should be on the ballot. I'm not a big fan of Cenk Uygur. I think Cenk Uygur should be on the ballot. You know, I think, you know, when you follow the election rules and you build something and you have people who are supportive of your campaign, you should be on the ballot. You know, I'm no fan of RFK. And I know some people are still convinced by this guy. I know, and you know what? Some years ago, I was, and I have friends who like RFK, and we talk about it. And, you know, some years ago, I was convinced that Tulsi Gabbard was something she wasn't. I did not support Tulsi Gabbard for president. I supported Bernie Sanders, but I liked Tulsi Gabbard. I thought highly of her. I was hoping she was going to be the VP pick for Bernie Sanders. And I had some friends who agreed with me. I had some friends who said, Ron, she's not what you think she is. And I was like, I'm come on. She's anti-war. She's calling out Clinton. She's calling out the DNC machine. She's not homophobic anymore. She has 100% rating with the HRC. She's a different type of politician now. And she's doing some good stuff. I thought that. I was wrong. And my friends kept telling me, no matter how much I insisted, they just said, Ron, she's not what you think she is. And they were right. And I was wrong. I got that one wrong. And so now when it comes to RFK, I'm telling my RFK friends, and I'm telling anyone listening who feels that way, look, I don't want to, you know, I'm not trying to wag my finger at you. I'm not trying to shame you or anything like that. I'm just saying he's not what you think he is. He's not what you think he is. The guy the imperialist who gets Wall Street money, is against Medicare for all, is against doing anything about climate change, is a right-wing Democrat in political views his entire career, never missed an opportunity to endorse a Clinton, is absolutely horrific on Israel-Palestine, and is an imperialist. He's not what you think he is. He just isn't. Sorry. But there's a new story with his flailing campaign. By the way, he tried to be a libertarian, too. He's actually touring the gamut quicker than Tulsi Gabbard did. He tried first. He was a Democrat. Then he did his whole Super Bowl ad to try to trick people into voting for him. He used the Kennedy legacy to trick people into voting for him just on name recognition. That's who that ad was for, by the way. That ad was not for his fans, like the people, the terminally online fan base he has. It wasn't for people who don't like him. It was for people who aren't super engaged in politics, who he was hoping would just vote for him out of name recognition. That's who that ad was for. It's amazing the people that can't see through that. All right. So anyway, that's an RFK story. Guys, dare I say, we have a little bit of good news, which does not happen often, especially these days. But we got a little bit of good news. Let's go to the first piece of good news. Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, the longest serving Senate leader in history. Isn't that frightening? He's going to step down. Mitch McConnell stepping down, folks. He is stepping down in November. Mitch McConnell, this is according to the AP. He turned 82 last week. I'll be honest, I actually thought he was older than that. But he announced his decision on Wednesday. Man, longest serving. The chamber where he looked in awe from its backbenches in 1985 where he arrived. So he's been around since 1985 doing that job. Oh, all I could say is, wow, thank goodness. What else could you say to that? Mitch McConnell stepping down. I mean, there's a little bit of relief. He'll probably be replaced by somebody terrible. But, you know, he has had a lot of time to put together an incredibly dangerous legacy. He was among the more dangerous people in American politics. I would definitely say he was in the top 5. And now he's stepping down. Breathe a sigh of relief. You've earned it. All of us have. All right. A little bit more good news here. So, guys, you know that digital rights is a topic near and dear to my heart. And we covered the FCC hearing when Gigi Sohn was getting her hearing from the Senate. We covered I believe the third hearing we covered live, and it was a disgusting right-wing smear campaign against Gigi Sohn. And it was successful. She had to withdraw her nomination. She is one of the most qualified appointees ever. I mean, she's been doing work in this space for over 30 years. She was beyond qualified, an amazing candidate when it comes to digital rights, net neutrality, media. She was just so abundantly qualified and a good candidate for that job. But because of some crazy right-wing smear campaign, and it was so bogus. I mean, they tried to make it out like she was some radical leftist. She's not. I mean, I would say she's actually, in many ways, center left. My personal politics are far to the left of Gigi Sohn's, but it's irrelevant. Is she going to be a good FCC commissioner? That's the thing at hand. And as an FCC commissioner, she's excellent. Her personal politics don't really matter, and a lot of people realize that. That's why she had support from people on the quote-unquote far left, people like me, and she had support on the right. She had a bunch of right-wingers who also liked her. She had people across the political spectrum, left, right, center, everything in between, who supported her. And that was because she's good at her job. That's why. But nonetheless, there was a huge smear campaign. We covered it here live. But here's the good news. She has a new project going on now in the space of municipal broadband, or public broadband, if you will. Public broadband or municipal broadband. I think I'm going to start saying public broadband more because I think that sounds a little better. But public broadband is basically consumer and municipal-owned internet where the town and municipality owns the internet, basically like it's a utility. Places in the country that do public broadband have better internet at a better price. And Gigi Sohn now has a new organization. Let's pull it up. This is the American Association for Public Broadband, advancing public broadband in the United States. Own your community's future. So this is an organization committed to getting municipal broadband all over the country. Now, here's the other really, really cool thing. I interviewed Gigi Sohn for my podcast. That episode will drop. That episode will drop next week. Thank you very much for this, Colin. Colin, by the way, designed the logo for the 1000 podcast. Shout out to Colin on the ones and twos. That's Colin's logo there. Now, Colin designed the logo for this podcast, and I interviewed Gigi Sohn this week. That episode will drop on Tuesday. Please subscribe to 1000 with Ron Placone wherever you get your podcast. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. I interview 1,000 different people that have piqued my interest in some way. And Gigi Sohn will be next week's guest. Next week on March 6th, Gigi Sohn is going to release a handbook for regular citizens who want to bring municipal broadband to their neighborhood. And for those of you who know me, you know that's something that I've been trying to do for the past 5 years. So it's pretty cool that an organization like this is out there. Right now, that's all we have as far as the announcement goes. But next week, March 6th, we'll know a lot more. We'll know more about the handbook. But for now, please follow my podcast and please check out Gigi Sohn's new project, the American Association for Public Broadband, which is aapb.us. That's aapb.us. And please subscribe to my podcast wherever you get your pods. Can we share those links in the chat, Colin? Is that okay? If we could just share them whenever you can. All right. So 2 pieces of good news, folks. Those are 2 pieces of good news. And if you can believe it, there is yet another piece of good news today. I know you're probably like, wow, is the sky falling? No, every now and again, we get some wins, and boy, do we got to cherish them. Guys, you know that I have been following the Kroger-Albertsons merger very closely. And I think this story is one of the most important domestic stories that is going largely not talked about. What's going on is that Kroger and Albertsons, the grocery chains, are trying to merge. If they do, they're going to be merging at a time of rising grocery prices. We all know this. The groceries are getting more and more expensive. I don't need to tell y'all. You're all feeling it every day. I know I am. So what happens if you have a huge monopolization of your grocery chain during a time of rising prices? Well, those rising prices are going to get locked in and they're going to go even further. That's what's going to happen. And we've already had grumblings. They're going to close stores. They're going to diminish wages. They're going to raise prices because guess what? You, the human, need food to live. They know that no matter how much they price gouge, you're still going to shop because guess what? If you don't eat food, you frickin' die. We know this. Food's not, you can't skip on food. You really can't. They know this. So they're trying to merge. And I truly believe, and I've said this before, if this merger happens, people will die. No punchline coming, folks. And I'm not embellishing. I'm not fear-mongering. I am being 100% sincere. If this merger happens, people will die. Why, Ron? Well, because people are going to become even more food insecure than they already are. And it's going to get to the point where they're going to say, well, we either steal food or we starve. And yeah, people are going to die. And, you know, either they're going to starve or they're going to try to steal and they're going to get shot. And I can tell you where I live in Los Angeles, there are more and more armed security guards at grocery stores. It is very dystopian. You walk into a grocery store in Los Angeles, you're greeted by a guy with a gun. That wasn't the case a couple years ago. Why is it the case now? Well, because they're preparing for a time where more and more people are going to be food insecure. So here's the good news part, everybody. This is from the AP. U.S. sues to block the merger of grocery giants Kroger and Albertsons, saying it could push prices higher. It would push prices higher. The FTC sued to block a proposed merger between grocery giants Kroger and Albertsons, saying the $24.6 billion deal would eliminate competition and lead to higher prices for millions of Americans. The FTC filed an administrative complaint against the companies Monday, which will be considered by an administration law judge at the agency. It also filed a lawsuit with the U.S. District Court in Oregon requesting a temporary injunction blocking the merger. The lawsuit was joined by the attorneys general of 8 states and the District of Columbia. Kroger and Albertsons, two of the nation's largest grocers, agreed to merge in October of 2022. The company said a merger would help them better compete with Walmart, Amazon, Costco, and other big rivals. Together, Kroger and Albertsons would control around 13% of the U.S. grocery market. Walmart controls 22%, according to J.P. Morgan analyst Ken Goldman. Both companies, immediately after the FTC announcement, said they will challenge the agency in court. So we haven't seen the end of this. By no means are we completely out of the woods, but breathe a little bit of relief. Breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief there, because that is huge. And, credit where it's due. Shout out to the FTC for doing the right thing here. And the FTC is headed up. The chair of the FTC is Lina Khan or Lina Khan. I'm not sure if it's Lina or Lina. Excuse me. It's Lina. But I think it's Lina. But Lina Khan is the chair of the FTC. And that was a Biden appointee. So credit where credit is due. I'm no fan of Biden, but this was one of the good moves. His FTC appointment here, who is doing some good work over at the FTC. And, you got to take the wins where you can get them. So little bit of good news, folks. Little bit of good news to close the show today. We're going to get to your super chats in just a moment, but a couple quick announcements. First of all, stay tuned after this stream because we're going to go right to my series, Frank Azzurri. I know not all of you have checked it out yet, but episode free. It's going to be free, but episode 3 is premiering right after this. It's the 3rd episode of my vertical series, Frank Azzurri. That's a series that premiered in Rome. Andrew Saxena, my co-producer, and myself. That's Andrew next to me. We have continued with the series. And this is our 3rd episode. I know some of you have been checking out the episodes. I appreciate that. Some of you haven't checked it out yet. Please stay tuned after this and check it out. I promise you'll enjoy it. It's a fun comedy series. The 1st episode dealt with climate change. The 2nd episode dealt with labor history. This 3rd episode is going to deal with land development, and in particular, a place in San Pedro called Sunken City. You're going to love it. It's a satire. It's a lot of fun. So please check it out. That's going to happen right after this. And folks, I have some events coming up. Tomorrow night, Omaha, Nebraska. Go see my movie. If you're in Omaha, Nebraska, my movie is playing tomorrow night. So check it out. Washington, D.C., my movie is playing on March 18th, and that screening is free. So Washington, D.C., there's a free screening on March 18th. March 22nd, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a show, screening, and Q&A. Get your tickets now, Pittsburgh at romplacone.com. April 14th, Los Angeles, stand-up show, screening, and Q&A. Get your tickets now. And June 8th, Idlewild, California, a show, a screening, and a Q&A. Get your tickets now at romplacone.com. I'm very excited for y'all to see my movie, Left at Wall. Let's go to the super chats. So smart, so stupid. How are you? Good to see you. Tell me you're bloodthirsty for dead babies without telling me, Anderson Cooper. Yeah, no kidding. Like just trying, like he won't even let her talk about the atrocities that are going on. Nancy Martin, $20. Thank you for that, Nancy. I hope you are well. Thank you so much for supporting us here at Status Coup. Much appreciated. And Glenn, how are you, buddy? As you didn't use your 2023 cheat, you should get an extra for 2024. Just make better choices, Rod. I have wondered that. I appreciate you saying that. Because after I had, my wife is participates in this tradition with me. And she felt bad that I really didn't enjoy my selection. And she goes, well, what did you get last year? And that's how we realized I didn't have one last year. I was like, well, actually, I forgot. I was like, the pretzel. Because honestly, what I was hoping Little Caesars was going to bring the pretzel pizza back. And I was going to get the pretzel pizza again. I do it once a year. Stop judging me. I can tell some of you are judging me. Once a year. All right? Ease up. But I was going to get the pretzel pizza a second time. But they didn't bring it back. Instead, they brought back this weird pepperoni thing. And I was like, Little Caesars, come on. That's not cool. Pretzel Pete, come on. If they bring it back in 2025, that's what I'm picking. But yeah. So I guess because Little Caesars didn't bring back the pretzel pizza in 2023, I just forgot to do anything. And I didn't get anything. But my wife did say, she's like, well, if you skipped a year, maybe you can get a mulligan for 2024. And I said, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I'll let the Status Coup viewers decide. We'll try to. Well, that'll be a poll for a different day. Does Ron get another chance? Yes or no? You could actually shout out in the chat right now whether you think I should get another chance or not. And we'll just go by the chats. If people are like, you get another chance. We have some disputes here. If he means the Fanceroni pepperoni, that is a masterpiece. Was it superior to, did you have the pretzel pie? Jordan or Colin, whoever is operating the chat right now.
That's me. The pretzel one was okay, but I'm a big fan of the old world pepperoni that gets all curled up and stuff. So that's
isn't that just less pepperoni?
No, the Fanceroni pepperoni has 3 pepperoni types on it, so it's just like a rug of pepperoni essentially.
It's just a rug of. All right, well that does sound good. Maybe I messed up.
Only once in a while I get that because that's
your piece. Special treat. and you're saying it's superior.
That's my break
to the
from
pretzel.
like Taco Bell. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're the pretzel baconator was beyond a disappointment. I don't know if you heard me messing it, but
I had a bad experience with Wendy a couple years ago, and so I've sworn them off with not even really my stomach swore them off. I just can't even get to it now anymore.
I feel you. Well, like I said, once a year, special treat once a year. So there we go. Well, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I don't think they announced a pizza this year, Colin. So it could be the trifecta pepperoni or whatever the hell it was called, or it could be the other thing, the pretzel pizza. We'll see what happens. I don't think they've announced yet for 2024. But yeah. So thank you for that, Glenn. I appreciate that. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, So Smart, So Stupid. Thank you all for hanging out. Here we go. Another Melissa had diarrhea. I don't know now I don't know if you're referring to the pretzel pizza or the Wendy's Baconator, but we're gonna say it's the Wendy's Bacon because that sandwich sucked. Yeah. Anyway, I disagree, public domain. I cordially disagree. Pretzel flavored anything other than a pretzel is whack. Cordially disagree. I think that pretzel buns are wonderful. I think pretzel, like, have you ever had a grilled pretzel panini? Just either of, like at a place that serves it. That's a special thing. Now, the Wendy's pretzel bun, I'm still convinced it was just a bun with brown food coloring. It was not. It offends me to think about it. It really does. As somebody who enjoys pretzels very much. And I think that's actually a Pittsburgh thing. I think I'm from a city that takes its pretzels very seriously. And here's an example of this. A friend of mine moved to Germany with his family. He has 2 kids, and he moved to Germany. And he was telling me one of the kids was having a really hard time with it. And he told me what his kid said. Now, keep in mind, he's a friend from Pittsburgh. I guess I should have mentioned that qualifier. His kid said to him that the only thing he likes about Germany is the swimming pools and the pretzels. That's the only thing this kid likes. I think he's adapted a little better now. But when they first moved, he was very sad. He missed Pittsburgh. And he said the only good thing about Germany was the swimming pools and the pretzels. So yeah, point being, I think I come from a town where pretzels are like kind of a big deal. Yeah. Oh, some people are saying that, man, we really got off on a fast food I don't know. I'm here for it. BK had a pretzel bun Whopper that was banging. Pizza Hut used to have a pretzel. I didn't know there was so much pretzel products. So I feel like if I played better here, if I was a little bit better about this, my once a year tradition could always be a pretzel related product. I feel like this is a me thing. Well, although it has been pretzels both times, but it could be, it could always just be some kind of pretzel related product that I do my once a year indulgence. Let's see here. Desmos Fleisch, how are you? Ron Judging, super chat again edition. Thank you, Desmos Fleisch. Do they have Wendy's where you're at? Because I know they actually had, I was in Tokyo and they actually had Wendy's in Tokyo. I know Wendy's isn't quite as all over the place as McDonald's is, but they did have Wendy's in Tokyo, but they didn't have the pretzel bun. I actually went to check it out. I was like, well, maybe I'll get my pretzel bun here. They didn't have it. because there's actually not a Wendy's in my neighborhood. I had to go to a different neighborhood to get my pretzel bun. And boy, was it not. It's actually, it's kind of funny. My wife and I were out at the bars, and then we decided, we were like, this is going to be the night. And then we went and we got Wendy's, and I got the pretzel bun, and I was so disappointed. So you know what, Wendy's? Yeah, whatever. All you did, you just put ice cream in a cup and called it a Frosty. That's all you did. It's just ice cream in a plastic cup. It's a Frosty. Now, they're very tasty. Don't get me wrong. The Frosties are tasty. But it's just a cup of ice cream. That's literally all it is. They're like, yeah, put it in a cup. You know what's crazy? Anyway. I like this. Jenna, yeah. Placone's Pretzels and Pierogi from Pittsburgh Project. I love that. Now, Jenna, I know you are in Pittsburgh. So my friend used to have a stand in the Strip District, and he still made the best pierogies I've ever had in my life. He used to have a stand in the Strip District. He has since closed his stand in the Strip District, and now he only takes orders. Like, you got to be in the know. But so you have to like let him know months in advance. Like, if you want something for the holidays, you have to let him know in September, and he'll put you on the list. I used to order from that guy back when I lived in Pittsburgh. That's the most Pittsburgh story to ever Pittsburgh. Just for anyone who doesn't realize that. It's like, who do you get from pierogi? I know a guy. I know a pierogi guy. He used to have a thing. Now you just got to know him. Amen to that, Michelle. Yes, he is. But yeah, all right. A lot of fast food talk. I like it. I'm here for it. Guys, stay tuned. Please enjoy Frank Azzurri. I'm really proud of the series that Drew and I are making, and I know you're going to love it. I know it's a new thing for Status Coup. This is the first scripted series that they've ever hosted, but check it out. Yeah, check it out. And thank you again, So Smart, So Stupid. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Des Bush Fleiss. And again, for people in Omaha and D.C., go see my movie. Pittsburgh, I'm doing a show. Get your tickets. Maybe my pierogi guy will be there in Pittsburgh. Who knows? Los Angeles, Idlewild, grab your tickets, romplacone.com. Thanks so much for being here today. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.